Good morning and welcome to today's webinar on international marketplaces. I'm thrilled to invite Craig from WorldFirst to join us once again to take us through the presentation. If you've got any questions as we go through, please do type them into the sidebar and we'll do our best to answer them either during the webinar or at the end. And without further ado, welcome, Craig.
Thank you very much, Chris. Hello, everyone. I am thrilled to be joining you all this morning to go over how to master international success. It's the last of our webinar series, and this is hopefully the one you've all been waiting for. Become an international marketplace ninja. Now, I'm sure we already have lots of Ronins and samurai, or at the risk of mixing metaphors, in the audience at the moment. But really, this is about how to take those final steps, how to find new marketplaces to conquer, and how to exploit them to the best of your advantage. As Chris said, I'll be taking questions throughout, so please make sure you type them in the panel on the webinar. And we're also recording this session. We'll be circulating the recording later on, so if you do miss anything, don't worry, you'll have an opportunity to review it again. So before we start, the one thing I did want to highlight first of all was that there's a brilliant white paper that Tame Bay has put together, sponsored by WorldFirst, that looks at £1 million sellers. So how do you get to that £1 million mark, how to master international success, and really leveraging marketplaces to your advantage. So please do visit the link to download it. It's a great read, worth a browse over a coffee, especially at the start of this new year as you're starting to lay down plans for the rest of 2019. It's full of great case studies and insightful opinions from established sellers. So it's definitely worth a go. So what topics will we cover today? Titled it From Novice to Ninja. It's probably a bit unfair to our case study, but it's really the story of a cross-border champion, Argerfield Limited, who trade as Price Right Home and World of Wallpaper, about how they started to expand internationally via marketplaces. What are some of the challenges that they've experienced in doing so, and some of the opportunities that they've realised. And also, ultimately what their future plans are going to be as well in terms of marketplaces. Although it might not be completely, transferable to everyone listening, it's certainly interesting to hear about how they started to stretch their international reach across borders and across continents. Secondly, it's about how to evaluate the marketplace best suited to your product range. So which product categories are particularly strong on certain marketplaces, which ones might you not have thought about in the past, but are actually a good opportunity. And then following on from that, it's about prioritizing those platforms. So actually making sure that you're setting your business on course for international marketplace success. And then finally, taking the leap. We'll look at a select group of some of those marketplaces and go through how to onboard with them, why they're interesting, and ultimately building those international sales. So first of all, why do online sellers, cross-border merchants use marketplaces to sell overseas? So I mean, the common uses of the marketplaces, as you can see from these charts, it's about to start with, 69% of respondents in the Tame Bay survey said that they list on the UK marketplace, but they enable international shipping options. So that's really, about having the customers come to you in the UK, which is a great first step and gives you, as we covered in previous webinars, it gives you a great basis and some great data to understand where the demand is, and where potentially to start listing products in front of those consumers in their home markets. 40%, which actually seems quite low when I was thinking about this, but they said that they list on local international marketplaces. So, that's listing on Amazon Germany or Walmart perhaps in the US or Jet.com or TradeBee in New Zealand. Those are actually about listing in those international markets, and really that's what we're going to be covering throughout the rest of this webinar. And then you've got great sort of international selling and fulfillment programs, such as obviously fulfillment by Amazon is probably the most prolific, but then you've got eBay Global Shipping Program, you've got Newegg International Shipping Program. They all offer some easier ways to access those international markets before you've actually been able to establish sort of first party fulfillment or ship by seller in those particular marketplaces. And when it comes to choosing the reasons for where to sell overseas, ease and price of shipping and fulfillment, unsurprisingly, 98% of respondents said that was an important reason, and it is a big part of the challenge as we'll get into. I think it's something echoed by Argofield in terms of how they actually prioritize certain marketplaces. And then a fairly even split here between custom duties and taxation. So really about tax compliance and reducing friction at borders and making sure that things land in territory intact and at a cost-effective price in order to then fulfill onto end consumers. And then the other side of that, the ability to take and fulfill returns. Returns is a big part of the jigsaw for certain categories, especially in fashion. I heard something astonishing the other day that said that 60% of the products that are bought are returned online when it comes to fashion categories. So that's a big part of it. And then finally, it's the reason that's highlighted by fewest respondents, but it actually makes a big difference when you're talking about certain markets. It's about not just the impact of currency conversion on those sales, but also being able to get those funds back in the first place quickly and cheaply. And that's something that we at WorldFirst are particularly well versed in, and hopefully can give you some pointers regarding. So let's move on to our ninja then. So Argofield, key facts. So Russell and Richard Deemer set up the company in 2004. Their mission was to supply quality and licensed soft furnishing, bedding, wallpaper via their two imprints, so Price Right Home and World of Wallpaper. And to start with, it was just via their own website and via a eBay UK storefront, which I imagine is similar to lots of people listening at the moment. That's how a lot of businesses begin on eBay, purely because it's a cost-effective way to get started, and then that can then spin off into your own website sales. But then it's really about looking at the other marketplace channels, most notably Amazon. But as you're selling internationally, that then becomes important to consider other marketplace channels. So the biggest cross-border challenges that Russell highlighted. So I sat down with him just over the Christmas break, and he provided his thoughts on exactly what challenges they faced, what tips they would give, and he highlighted, as you'd probably expect from the previous chart, logistics and returns are the biggest challenge when trading cross-border. Obviously, they're physical products. You need to get them from point A to point B, and it's easier said than done in many instances. And then also, foreign exchange and payments as well are a big challenge as well in certain markets. And his tip, I guess his top tip for cross-border sellers starting out, don't let language and cultural differences become a barrier to trade. As we'll get into, he really felt that, a lot of people look at the European market or look at, Asia as being, out of bounds because of differences in how the local markets respond to the essentially the same products and the same listings. But in reality, he said, if you get out there and you put it out in English, that's better than not getting out there at all. So that's something to bear in mind. And obviously, there's lots of solutions for localizing listings and so on for certain markets. But when it comes to customer service, a vast majority of it's still done in English globally, and that can be a lower barrier to entry then in accessing those markets. So in terms of the building up his marketplace presence, so we said that Argerfield started in 2004. It was actually July 2007 when they started on Amazon UK. That was followed by a period of trading successfully on that platform until they ramped up in early 2013 to throughout 2014. Onboarding onto the European marketplaces. And I think that we really saw a push from Amazon to unify the European Seller Central around that period as well, make it easier for UK merchants to export and share listings across all of those marketplaces. So it's easier than ever to, if you're selling on Amazon UK, to list onto all of those others. I believe it's as simple as selecting which marketplaces you want to be on, and actually getting those listings translated or piggybacking on existing listings for your SKUs. And then in November 2014, the next big step was onto Amazon.com in the States. Now, it's the biggest Amazon marketplace. It's where a vast majority of sales occur across the Amazon ecosystem. They all tend to be centralized in the US in many cases. They've got, potentially the largest amount of competition in terms of the number of sellers, but also in terms of the number of listings, in terms of the customers. It's unrivaled in the US. So it's a logical starting point really for US sales. Then in August 2016, we had Trade Me in New Zealand. So that was a big leap, if you like, to the other side of the world. But it was a logical one for Argerfield because the margins were so awesome, for their product range, and also they saw a lot of demand for the wallpaper, the children's bedding that they were selling in that market where the local selection just wasn't that great. So they were one of these sort of early UK sellers on Trade Me. There are lots of UK merchants on there now, but it's certainly one to think about. You might not think of New Zealand as being a particularly large market, but what's great is internet penetration's very high there, especially with Trade Me. Virtually everyone has a Trade Me account, and finally the local selection can be quite limited. So that's quite a big jump to make, but can be quite a lucrative one. So then we in Q3 2017 onboarded onto Newegg. Now Newegg at the time, it still is a very strong marketplace. It's is one of the top ones for tech, as we'll go into later. And they've got quite an exciting sort of global program as well that allows you to onboard onto multiple countries all at once with limited sort of heavy lifting required by the seller. So that's quite exciting. And then in Q4 2017, we've got Amazon Australia, was where lots of you listening probably saw the launch at the end of 2017. It's not been without a few speed bumps along the way. I heard that early shipping times were perhaps a bit ludicrous for some customers, and I think that eBay certainly has stolen a march on Amazon in the territory, but I think it would be far too perhaps mean of us to say that they've had a bad year. I think it will only go from strength to strength, and I think that the Russell's also seen that with sales across Price Right Home and World of Wallpaper. Sorry. And then in September 2018, Argofield started selling on Catch, and now used to be known as Catch of the Day, another Australian marketplace, but they sort of specialise in discounting, time limited deals and so on, but very popular in Australia, and certainly another one to think of if you're selling cross-border there. I have noticed we do have a couple of questions here, so I did just want to have a quick look at this, if we could just pause momentarily. I've got a question. Is the sound working? I hope that everybody can hear us okay. If you're having any issues with sound, it may be, hopefully it's not an issue at our end. I can see that we do appear to have the microphones working okay on this side, so I hope that everything's working all right for you now. Dinah, give us let us know in the question tab if you still can't hear, if you're still with us. And then Alex mentioned are Nexus tax liabilities not a barrier to simple trading in the US? I mean, we've heard a lot about this recently. I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of the bits pushed out by Avalara recently in respect to the Wayfair ruling that actually means that this is probably going to be a hot topic over the course of the next year. I mean, is it going to be easy to trade in the US? The answer is it's probably going to be as complex as it always has been, plus, with tax registration required in any states which you have economic nexus, that is something you are going to need to consider when thinking about trading in the US. So it may be even that we see less emphasis on sellers selling into Europe and then into the US, and maybe looking at other markets with simpler sort of tax regimes or requirements. Having said that, there's nothing more expensive than bad advice, so I would suggest you pick up with tax consultancy specialists, experts. There are lots out there that such as Simply VAT, I believe VAT Global's another one, Accordance VAT. I'm sure they all have some good advice for you should you have any questions in that respect. Right, I just had an update from Natalie. She said, sound does keep dropping out, had to dial in by phone. The default was for earphones, so you had to change the default to be able to hear. Yes, it's working now, Dinnock says. Okay, I'm hoping that the sound is okay. If it's not, with any luck, it will be on the recording, as providing everybody can hear us okay. Hopefully you will be able to refer to that in case your phone dial-in perhaps isn't as consistent as it should be. Right, so to continue Argofield's story then. So in terms of overcoming some of the challenges selling on marketplaces, this was one of the ones that he highlighted to start with, and I mean it's one that's of particular precedence when you think about the events going on here in the UK today with the Brexit vote this evening, and the volatility expected around that, even if it is a foregone conclusion that the vote will be defeated. Russell very charitably stated that the WorldFirst solution helped with this, but it is important to think about the risk, think about how FX rate apply to your local pricing on each marketplace, but also in terms of actually getting paid. So first of all is to think about the pros and cons of potentially hedging via forward contracts. So in the pros column, you'd say stability of pricing, no risk of sales becoming unprofitable. And really what we mean by hedging is fixing an exchange rate for a period. So what that means is that you take today's rate and you fix it potentially for 6, 12 months, or a set notional amount of sterling that you want to buy, or euros or dollars that you want to sell, and it just means that you've got that certainty then, so you know exactly how many pounds you're going to get back for each euro that you earn, and that can be useful if you have no natural hedge, i.e. you're not using the US dollars coming in to pay for other USD outgoings to suppliers, and you do actually need to repatriate some of those funds. It is something worth speaking to a specialist about, at a company like WorldFirst to find out, what your options are then to make sure that profitability is protected. The cons include, less flexibility when repricing. So, what that can mean is, let's say that the pound drops through the floor later tonight, and you've already hedged at that higher rate, so you know that you're getting, for example, $1. Each pound is costing you $1.30. Let's say that drops tonight, and I'm not saying it would, but let's play out the scenario that it drops to $1.25. If you've already hedged, potentially that gives you less flexibility to adjust your US dollar pricing lower, and potentially losing sales in that respect. Having said that, let's say by some miracle the vote manages to go, managed to win the vote tonight, and sterling rallies all the way up to 135. The good thing there is that if you've already hedged, you've hedged at 130, so you don't have to increase your US dollar sales pricing, or you could increase your pricing and benefit from any extra margin that you make. So that's something to bear in mind. And then aside from hedging via forward contracts, Russell also mentioned that it's better to avoid whatever default FX rates, or in fact even having to convert the funds. If you're using Amazon or using some other marketplaces that have the ability to pay you in pound sterling, the foreign exchange rates might not be as brilliant, and you might not want to convert at any particular time. It just gives you a bit more control, or even allows you to collect the currencies locally and then make outgoing payments in those currencies without having to convert them. So we offer 7 currency accounts at the moment, with Singapore dollar and Mexican peso coming very soon. So something worth considering if you're selling on overseas marketplaces. Another challenge that he highlighted was around logistics. So he specifically cited, whilst we send everything in the UK by track service, outside the UK, the costs versus non-tracked are high. And when you sell relatively low value and light goods, it's difficult to switch to a reliable track service. So, what he was sort of highlighting there is that sending goods untracked does generally work. And that's particularly true where there's a reliable, mature infrastructure in place, such as France and Germany, and the US as well. But outside of key markets, use track services, so they'll be more expensive. The potential there is also using a marketplace's own fulfillment solution. They actually take responsibility for the experience that any customers receive when it comes to missing packages or anything like that. So it doesn't impact your seller rating. And again, it's about managing that cost and ease sort of balance. But it's something that can play a huge role. Of course it does. If you're supplying customers, they need to make, you need to make sure that it gets there, within a certain time frame, and that you are not on the receiving end of bad feedback, or worse, refunds and things and so on. So, whilst you might try to keep costs down, there is a certain recognition that it won't always be possible for some of the more emerging markets. And we touched upon it, but when it comes to returns, Russell said his return rates are pretty low, and he's actually still looking for a low-cost return service for their main markets. But there are lots of innovative solutions out there. Whether they're, again, it's about costing, it's about balancing the cost and ease of the service. So refulfillment can be an option in market. Even, you know, if you have to do the unthinkable and recycle or destroy products, you know, if it doesn't warrant the cost of warehousing or shipping, it might be the preferred option, having an agent or you know, a partner to do that. And actually, if they do end up getting donated to charities, you can also use that as a, you know, sort of a tax write down as well on those products. And I suppose probably what you don't necessarily want to have to happen when you're selling into international markets, but return shipment, if the product warrants it, looking at, you know, some return routes into certain countries are cheaper or subsidized by national, you know, by governments or whatever. So it's worth looking into those providers as well, should you have to do that. So those are the three challenges that Russell really sort of highlighted when I spoke to him. In terms of risk, so we touched upon it already, but Brexit's hot on everybody's mind at the moment, whether we want it to be or not. It's being rammed down our throats at every opportunity by both sides. You know, staying out of the politics of it, there will be initial friction points, no doubt. I think that Russell really highlighted that his biggest concern would be delays at ports, whether you believe the doom mongers or not. So if that, you know, results in delays to deliveries to customers and increase in negative customer feedback, that will be something that you know, he would have to either manage or potentially, you know, temporarily suspend listings, which I mean is a bit of a nuclear option. But you know, the last thing you want to do is to be making sales that you can't fulfill. So you know, it's a risk, and certainly, you know, within the EU, that's something to bear in mind. But I think it's something that everybody's aware of and is doing, you know, has you know, their own plan B, ways to mitigate that. So it's something to bear in mind. But ultimately, you know, once we're out the other side of it, you know, the hope is that international trade with non-EU countries can improve potentially, and you know, if we start to sign more sort of bilateral trade agreements and so on, that might be something that benefits online sellers as well. And a knock-on effect of Brexit, exchange rate fluctuations. So, you know, Russell just really highlighted that a small swing in exchange rates can result in a large change in net profit for, you know, low value or low margin products for Argofield. And I mean, the same applies to all online sellers, you know, even if it's short-term hedging of, you know, a couple of weeks each time between making the sale and getting paid, it can make a big difference, especially, you know, when you think that over the course of several weeks, we could, in a, you know, a nightmare scenario, see, you know, over a, you know, a double-digit percentage move in the exchange rate one way or another. So it's worth just giving some thought, at least, to where your budget rate is and where your best case rate might be, to make sure that you're capitalising on advantageous moves and limiting your any impact of disadvantageous moves against you. So thinking about what Russell's highlighted there in terms of his rollout of his marketplace presence, I kind of wanted to look at which are the biggest marketplaces in each region. So in Europe, you know, some familiar names on that list, but certainly, you know, Amazon and eBay need no introduction. You've got your Not on the High Street and Etsy for, you know, handmade or personalized things. You've got Zalando and ASOS, Otto to an extent in terms of fashion, Bowl.com across Benelux. It's quite an important marketplace. And then in France, Cdiscount, Price Minister, Fnac as well, Mano Mano, we'll get onto, but is an up-and-coming DIY and sort of outdoors retailer. Hitmeister in Germany, you've got their Frugo across multiple countries, Allegro in Poland, Whoopty and Sidon in the Nordics. So it's, there's a lot of marketplaces there, and we don't suggest you make it a policy to sell on every single one, because it won't make sense, not least for the products you're selling. You're not going to get anywhere, well, you won't be able to list electronics on ASOS, or potentially listing food products on Mano Mano. It might, that might be something down the line, but for ASOS, where it's very much a fashion marketplace, it doesn't make sense to have non-apparel products on there. So certainly worth having a look at those, and there's a great resource that I'll come on to later for looking into the commission rates and costs and potential barriers or shipping programs and so on that they offer, that you can refer to, and that's provided by the Department for International Trade. So if you go onto their website, they've got a great e-marketplaces section that gives you the lowdown. Then in North America, you've got Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Newegg, Wish, Best Buy, Walmart, Jet. I mean, those are the main ones. Then it looks like there's not really too much else outside of that. I mean, you've heard of some other marketplaces like Top Hatter, perhaps, that sort of shake up the marketplace platform, or what's really expected from marketplaces. But it's typically one of those that will be your bread and butter when it comes to US sales. In Latin America, Amazon are present now in Brazil, Mexico, but then you've got Linio and Mercado Libre, who are local marketplaces, Americanas as well, Submarino, Casas Bahia. There are a few that are worth looking at, but it's a tough market, LATAM. Really only the most seasoned international sellers really see there being some market there for UK sellers. It would depend on the product you're selling, depending if you're already seeing some demand from that region as to whether it would be worthwhile for you, I think. And then in Australasia, you've got Amazon, eBay, catch.com.au. Hard to Find is another one for sort of personalised gifts and more sort of curated arts and crafts, perhaps. And then you've got Trade Me in New Zealand, which is quite a formidable force. And then in Asia, we've got Alibaba, AliExpress, JD.com, Jingdong, Taobao, which is the sort of P2P or C2C side of Alibaba. Then you've got Tmall Global, which is probably the more interesting one for anybody listening. And then some others such as Xiaohongshu, Rakuten, in Japan, it's very, very big, Rakuten Ishiba. You've got Flipkart and Snapdeal in India as well, although India, as we've touched upon in a previous webinar, is quite a difficult nut to crack at the moment. But if you're an intrepid international seller that fancies a challenge, it might still be one to think about. So in terms of categories, I mean, this is really, skipping ahead. In terms of categories, this really is where you'll start to identify which marketplaces might fit your product or your selection. Across electronic, I've picked out, probably the four biggest categories in most of the markets. So electronics and media, you've got your usual sort of faces, but you've got ePrice in Italy, and there's Game Marketplace in the UK. Lazada's quite a big name out in Southeast Asia, especially since Alibaba bought them a couple of years ago. And then you've got Sidon, Whoopty in the Nordics as well. That's really where they go for their electronics and media purchases online. When it comes to fashion and clothing, I mean, you've got your usual suspects again. ASOS is obviously the biggest one, for UK based retailers, but then you've got Zalando. You've even got the high end of fashion with Farfetch. So, they work directly with luxury brands. It depends, I suppose, if anybody listening is representing or is, a large luxury retailer, but it's one that's attracted a lot of investment recently, and it's quite an exciting name to watch for. And also, you've got your Chinese marketplaces on there. There is a lot of a lot of work done by Tmall, by Alibaba and Jingdong to ensure that the products on their marketplaces are genuine and that any luxury brands are represented as they want to be seen. So, giving them a bit more ownership of their brand on those platforms. So, for authentic purchases, as in conjunction with Amazon China, you do see, sales across those sites. From Chinese consumers, and then on gifts and crafts. So you've got a few there that we've kind of gone over already. Truva is an interesting one. They actually only work with physical stores. So if you happen to be a boutique retailer, they're quite an interesting business. Again, they've attracted quite a lot of investment, and they effectively manage all of the shipping and fulfillment and things for your products. So effectively, give your physical boutique an online presence. So if it just so happens to be anyone listening who hasn't started out yet online, who has a physical store, that's one to bear in mind. And then across home, outdoor, DIY, sports, you've got Newegg, Wayfair as well. It's big in any sort of furniture, soft furnishing, and Mano Mano is an increasingly sort of attractive site for certain online sellers. We've worked with a number that are generating significant volume in DIY, outdoor furniture, sports, sort of products or merchandise on those platforms, and their biggest presence is in the UK and in France. I mean, they're originally a French company, and then Trade Me and Whoopty as well there. So those are, it's not exhaustive, but it's somewhere to start. And again, you can find quite a lot of good bits on the DIT's website in terms of the categories for each of those categories that suit each marketplace, and vice versa. And you can actually specify that I am selling, clothing or apparel, and I want to sell into this country, and it will give you a curated list of marketplaces to sell on. Lots of them with sign-up offers as well that have been negotiated, so worth a go. So I don't want to teach anyone how to suck lemons here, but it is important as well to recognise still that 95, according to sort of our internal statistics, 95% of marketplace sellers sold on Amazon in 2018. Now, that might obviously be skewed by the type of businesses that we work with, but it's important to recognise that only 5% of the marketplaces that we see don't sell on Amazon at all. So it is really important to sort of diversify onto other marketplaces, build out presence in countries where perhaps Amazon haven't got presence, because as the old saying goes, you don't want all of your eggs in one basket. So when you're choosing which marketplace to sell on, we've talked about product alignment, but choose the right marketplace for your range, and that includes a solid technical platform. So, what you don't want is for buyers to be struggling through any technical issues, or it to be difficult, in terms of discoverability or when searching on a marketplace. And obviously make sure it's talking to your target demographic. If you're selling fast-moving fashion, the chances are, Farfetch, A, will probably not be a good fit in the first place, but B, even if you did manage to list on that marketplace, you might not see any sales, or it might not work to your brand's advantage. Similarly, following on from that, it's about the photography. It's about the, how enjoyable and attractive are listings. How, in terms of enhanced, brand content, or, layout options, what sort of options are there for you for your own products? And, if you're a reseller using existing SKUs or listings on the platform, are they attractive and comprehensive enough? Does it talk to your target demographic the way that you would like those products to be conveyed? And what do the rankings for those products look like? So, on most platforms, you can see some sort of rudimentary sales ranking. It's worth just taking a barometer of, how those products are doing on that platform. And then we've got ease of listing and repricing. So it sounds obvious, but start with the low-hanging fruit. Those that your existing integrator, works with. So, if you're using Limworks or, Volo or Channel Advisor potentially, which marketplaces do they have on their supported marketplace, integration list? And start with those, because the last thing you want to be doing is fiddling around with the technical integration that's on the fringes of what your provider does. I mean, if there is a marketplace that really, you really want to get on that your integrator doesn't support, it might be worth, speaking. I know there are other players out there like, NetEven that, sort of offer a peripheral, integration really. So, they won't try to replace, your existing provider, but they'll actually, help you integrate with any of the more, exotic or lesser known or celebrated marketplaces. And again, if you think this is a great marketplace, or I want to be at the forefront, I want to be part of the gold rush, that occurs with lots of new marketplaces, when they start to get a bit of press or investment, that's something to consider. And crucially, those where you can provide local language support, or where English is tolerated or accepted, that's something to bear in mind as well in terms of onboarding with the marketplace. And then finally, the big one for lots of respondents to the survey, but how easy is it to ship products to consumers, and at what cost, whether that's via a marketplace's own solution, or via a third-party provider, or ship by seller. How are you actually going to get the products to the customers? And really, you can work backwards from there to some extent, working right to left when it comes to thinking about marketplaces, because it is often the technical sort of nitty-gritty where things start to break down. So it's something to bear in mind. And how are you going to get paid by the marketplace, and what currency exposure could you be taking on? I don't want to labour that point any more than I already have in previous slides, but just make sure that you've got a way to get paid, because the last thing you want to do is to have your earnings held hostage in a foreign country by a marketplace that perhaps you've been able to onboard to and sell on, but you've got no scalable way to actually get paid quickly. That's not going to put a pinch on your cash flow. I've got a question here. Any thoughts on on-buy? Now, on-buys, so thank you very much for that, Supreet. I think, well, on-buys, being quite publicised in terms of being, very pro-seller or, pro-merchant. It seems to be, going out there to sort of take the fight to the established players. I think that, we haven't seen it to scale yet, but I'm sure that there are, I've seen it already on Tame Bay comments where there are merchants that are already seeing some decent results with OnBuy. I mean, to be honest, in terms of their international presence, I'm not too familiar, and actually that's something I'll go away and have a look at. But domestically in the UK, it certainly seems like they've found a niche there in terms of a very sort of pro-merchant setup that looks to fill some of the voids perhaps left by lots of your marketplaces like Amazon, that might have left behind a few sellers in their sort of rampant march towards growth. So that's certainly something to consider. That's a great suggestion. Thank you for that, Sapri. And if you have any, or if you have any experiences with them, do let us know as well. I'd be fascinated to hear from sort of a real life example. So which marketplaces are we going to? Oh, so we've lost. Oh, here we go. No, we got the Newegg logo there. Sorry, it disappeared for a moment. So I wanted to sort of focus on a few marketplaces here that may be of interest, may not. Just very quickly touch upon, Newegg's doing some exciting stuff with Newegg Global. So the idea is you sign up once, you list, and you sell into 51 countries, which also include Brazil, China as well. They've got TT Higo in China, which is a well-respected local marketplace. And they've got 36 million users at last count. So, they lead primarily in tech, gaming, and smart home categories. So if you sell in any of those, definitely worth a look. In terms of ease of logistics, I mean, there's multiple shipping options. There's seller fulfilled, there's Ship by Newegg, which is their version of sort of FBA, and their Newegg international shipping program, which works hand in hand with their Newegg global platform. There's a link there, newegg.com/sellers, to sign up. If you had any further questions that you wanted to raise before sort of going through the motions there, feel free to reach out to us at WorldFirst. We're happy to loop you in with the team there at Newegg. And ultimately, when you're getting paid, you can use your WorldFirst US dollar currency account details to get paid quickly and cost effectively. Then, I've mentioned TradeMe. It doesn't really need too much introduction for those of you that are aware of the marketplace. They've got over 4 million users, and bear in mind that the population in New Zealand as a whole is less than 5 million. That's pretty good going. And nearly 1 million daily visitors. The benefits really for a UK or European-based seller is the reverse seasonality, obviously no language barriers. They've got large supply gaps. So in certain products, there just is no domestic, producer, or if it is available domestically, it's very expensive. So there's opportunities there for UK or Western sellers to benefit from those gaps and to help provide a greater selection really for domestic consumers. There are a number of simple integration options apparently, although I've included the head of the sort of global e-commerce platform over there, David Swift's email address there, in case you have any further questions or are interested in potentially signing up. I don't believe it's possible at the moment for a UK-based seller to sign up via the register now as a seller form on TradeMe, so probably best to direct any queries to David. And you can use the WorldFirst New Zealand dollar local currency account details that you get within the World account, your own unique account, to get paid more frequently. So the international payment schedule is usually once a month, I believe, and by using those account details, because it's a local account, they pay you more frequently, which should hopefully ease cash flow, especially when you're shipping halfway around the world and you've got your products in transit potentially. So Lazada, huge Southeast Asian presence. they're going gangbusters. They're in lots of the emerging markets, as you can see there: Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. They've also tied up with Taobao in China in order to offer their product selection across those marketplaces as well. And they've got 145,000 sellers, lots of them domestic-based, very few international-based. 260 million SKUs across the sites, 3,000 brands. So, lots of products out there across 15 categories. And again, they've got their own sort of services marketplace to find the right partners for all of the logistics marketing integrator. So we can help you get signed up. What Lazada do is they take because of some of the local sales being realized in currencies that are exotic and not quite as freely traded, such as the Indonesian rupiah, Malaysian ringgit, and so on. You can use the WorldFirst US dollar currency account details to get paid by Lazada in US dollars. So they do a sort of dynamic currency conversion from the local currency into US dollars, which then gets paid to your WorldFirst account. So hopefully meaning you take on less local currency risk, because obviously in those currencies that they are prone to fluctuations. And then sort of finally on this slide, we've got Mano Mano. Now I've mentioned them briefly. They're a leading French and UK specialist DIY marketplace. They're also active across Belgium, Spain, Italy, Germany. Well funded, lots of SKUs, although not quite as many as Lazada, but they're a bit more niche. Quite a few users, not so many sellers. So there's only 2,000 sellers at the moment on the platform. It's all fulfilled by seller. So that should be easy enough if it's UK or French sales, hopefully. Their revenue growth is going very strongly. As I said, we have a lot of international sellers that are selling on that platform, doing some great volumes, high GMV, and generally say that it's a very well thought out specialist marketplace. So if you are active in any of the categories that they sell, it's worth giving a go. So that's it in terms of the specific marketplaces that we wanted to highlight that you might not have thought about. Obviously, as I said, the DIT website is a great place to go for. If you just Google DIT e-marketplaces, should take you to the right website for a bit more in-depth analysis. When it comes to Russell's final thoughts in terms of his future plans, I mean, he sort of echoed a lot of what we've discussed. So he wants to continue to expand the business internationally, especially on marketplaces. Regions of particular interest include the Middle East. So I've included a few of the the logos below. You've got Souk, you've got Mum's World, expansion into Eastern Europe, South Africa, developing Asian nations. So in terms of Eastern Europe, you've got I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but you've got Skelwi, Horeca, you've got Allegro in Poland, you've got Bidorbuy in South Africa, and then you've got Lazada and so on in developing Asian nations. And really, he highlighted that anywhere that mobile phones are now enabling e-commerce like never before, that is so true, and it's so fast moving at the moment that the names that we cited in this presentation will no doubt no longer be as relevant over the next 24 months potentially. It might change again, and we might see new consolidation within the space and new marketplaces. But it's really to sustain that growth mindset where you are looking overseas for opportunities, either because of or enabled potentially in some markets by developments with Brexit, with our relationship with global nations, is something to bear in mind. I do have a question here. Sorry, it's a statement rather from Alex. It's a very valid one actually. People will also need to bear in mind the new Germany packing laws and to register. So actually he probably knows more about this than I do. So it might be worth something, to follow up everybody listening regarding the Germany packing laws. I'm going to go away and have a look at this because I'm not actually a logistics specialist. So that's something to have a look at. I imagine that, it's just important to bear in mind all sorts of these local compliance or regional compliance, changes that are coming in, whether it's tax, logistics. I heard recently that, in terms of direct shipping into China, that now needs to be, there are new compliance laws around that. So, whilst I can give you a broad sort of high level view of all of these marketplaces that all sound brilliant on the surface, you really do need to do your research, as we've touched upon in previous sessions. So thank you very much for that, Alex. Right, so to round off, that's all from me today. Hopefully you found it of some use. Please, again, I wanted to highlight the white paper. It's a brilliant, quick sort of 5-minute read over a cuppa. Definitely worth a look. Thank you to Russell at Argofield as well for being such a sport and spending time with me and giving me an insight into the challenges that he's facing as a business. Hopefully they resonated with some of you listening. I imagine you'll have your own unique challenges, and it's really my role and other service providers' role to provide you with timely advice in our respective sort of areas of expertise. So do leverage that. I mean, quite often, there's no cost to having a conversation over the phone or a bit of email correspondence with, somebody in FX or somebody in shipping or anything like that. If you're unsure on how to proceed, chances are they'll be able to point you in the right direction, because, the last thing we want is for anyone to miss out on future international sales. I think we've pretty much answered all of the questions and comments raised throughout the course of this webinar. So I've put there any questions. I've had a few as we've gone. So thank you very much for all of you that did answer any questions. If you still have any questions, feel free to give me a call on the number listed there on your screen. Drop me an email. Even if it's, if you disagree with something I've said, I'd love to hear about it. Ultimately, we're all students when it comes to the growing world of e-commerce, and especially cross-border e-commerce. I don't think we'll ever, perhaps, although we might become ninjas, we'll never become absolute masters. But thank you very much for joining me this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to hearing from you in future.
Yeah, just echo that. Thank you so much for your time, Craig, and the effort you've put into this. Enormously interested, especially the contact details you've given for getting started on some of these marketplaces. And just to emphasize to everyone, if you do have any further questions, you've got the etailers@worldfirst.com email address on your screen. Drop Craig a line, and obviously we'll also be immediately after this presentation, you'll be able to rewatch at your leisure and take notes if you missed anything. So once again, Craig, thank you so much for your time in preparing this.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, everyone.